So, hello everybody. Today I'm going to present part of my PhD work, which is about present-day tectonics of the Salt Range and Potwar Plateau region in Pakistan. So first in my PhD, I'm interested in the northwestern end of the Indo-Eurasian plate collision, which is also known as here, as you can see, the northwestern syntax of the Himalayan chain, which is quite a complex area with all the structures that you can see here. But as I said, for this presentation, I'm going to focus on the Salt Range and Potwar Plateau, which actually is here and form what we can call a fold and thrust belt system. But what is interesting here is that we have the presence of a very shallow décollement level beneath the Potwar Plateau in a Precambrian salt layer. And due to the presence of this salt layer, you can see that there is a lack of major earthquake in this region. So you can see earthquake around it, here and here, but none of them is in the plateau. There may be one exception, that is the Meyer earthquake that you can see here, that occurred in 2019 with a magnitude of 5.9, and that's ruptured an almost flat fault and only 5 kilometers depth. But it was localized really at the southeastern part of this system. And actually talking about boundaries, the eastern part of the plateau is limited by the Jhelum fault, which is a left lateral strike-slip fault. And on the west, there is the Kalabak fault, which is an active transpersive right lateral strike-slip fault that is divided into two segments. So you have the northern segment here and the southern segment here. Now, if we are looking at the frontal part, so here the Salt Range, where there is this topographic expression, looking at a geological cross-section that is here, that you can find here, we can see the presence of an inherited normal fault localized in the basement that created some sort of an uplift of this décollement level toward the surface along a frontal ramp that we call the Salt Range thrust ramp. And in the Himalayan context, this frontal ramp can be characterized as the main frontal thrust, and the rest of this décollement level, so beneath the Potwar Plateau, can be described as the main Himalayan thrust. And so due to this frontal ramp, the salt layer reach actually the surface on the southern flank of the salt ranges. Okay, so now to study the tectonics of this system, I use two types of data. So I use the GNSS data. I'm not going into the details of the processing, just a few information. So for the GNSS data, I use permanent, but mostly temporary stations that were measured between 2001 and 2022. And then to complete this sparse data, I use the INSAR data to have a full spatial coverage of the area. So again, here I used like Sentinel-1 data from 2014 to 2022. And to cover the full area, I use 4 different tracks, so 2 ascending tracks and 2 descending tracks. I did the processing with the NSBAS processing chain that is developed at Easter. And finally, I did time series inversion to obtain the temporal evolution. And from this, I extract the linear interseismic velocity. So first, the GNSS for this region. So here you have the horizontal velocities, so GNSS velocities, expressed as India fixed. And what we can see here is that for the plateau, actually, we have non-zero velocity, which means that the décollement level is actually not fully locked, which is what we expected. And actually, we can say more. Looking at those velocity, we can say that this plateau is actually creeping at almost 5 millimeters per year toward south-southwest. But what is really interesting in this region is this frontal part, so the Salt Range part, where we can see that we have variation of the horizontal velocity. And we have actually stronger velocity at this frontal part compared to the plateau. And the velocity on this frontal part can be higher than 10 millimeters per year, which is quite strong. So now, so the INSA data. So here what I present is like the linear interseismic line of sight velocity maps that are expressed to be comparable with the GNSS data as India fixed. So here you have the two ascending tracks, at the bottom the two descending tracks, and to interpret those line of sight velocities, when you have negative velocity, so it's more the reddish color, you're going toward the satellite. While when you have a positive velocity, so the bluish color, you are going away from the satellite. So always in the line of sight of the satellite. So here for the Potwar Plateau, what we can notice is that for all track, we have quite a uniform line of sight velocity on each track. And this interesting part is that we have mostly negative velocities for the ascending tracks, while for the descending tracks, we have positive velocities. And because we have this opposite sign of line of sight velocities, we can say that this movement is mainly horizontal, which means that with INSA, what we observe for the plateau is that it is an horizontal uniform displacement. But again, the interesting part is the frontal part, where we can see here we have the same sign, so the same negative sign on all the tracks, which means that because we have this same sign, we have mostly a vertical displacement. And actually, it means that all this frontal part that you can see here is uplifting up to 8 millimeters per year in the line of sight of the satellite, which is quite strong on the west, but decrease a bit toward the east and end of this plateau. And now to compare with the GNSS data, so what I did, I used the horizontal GNSS data and I converted them into line of sight velocities. So those are the color dots that you can see all on the maps. And what we find for the Potwar Plateau, we can find good consistency between the GNSS data and the horizontal data, which is quite nice. But for the frontal part, we can see some differences. And actually, those differences can be explained by the fact that for the conversion, I only use horizontal GNSS data and not the vertical one. While for the INSA map, it shows mainly vertical displacement. So now a bit of a zoom in. So here it's exactly the same maps, but it's just a zoom in the frontal part of the salt range, where you have here an ascending track, a descending track, and the geological maps that you can see. And what is interesting here is this series of positive, negative anomalies that you can see. And actually, the localization of this positive, negative anomaly corresponds to the position of valleys where the salt is actually reaching the surface in the middle of the valley, so the bottom of the valleys. And so I just put the salt limit on those maps. It's the brown dashed line that you can see here. And what we can then say is that where the salt is reaching the surface, so at the bottom of the valleys, we have the negative velocity signs for both tracks, which means that we have an uplift of this salt that is at the bottom of the valley. While on each side, we have this opposite sign that is changing from the descending to the ascending tracks, which means that we have an horizontal movement toward actually the center of this valley. Another zoom. So this time it's a zoom at the Calabac Fault, just a small reminder. So the Calabac Fault is the western boundary of the plateau. And here we are zooming in the southern segment. So here we have always the same map, but for a descending track and for an ascending track. And what we can notice in this descending track is this marked line with abrupt change of velocity from one side to the other side. And actually, this line corresponds to the surface trace of the southern segment of the Calabac Fault. But what is interesting here is that we cannot see anything in this ascending track. And actually, it can be explained by the fact that in this track, the line of sight vectors is almost perpendicular to the fault trace, which actually gives us information. It means that the displacement is mainly along the fault with almost no vertical displacement. So by making this hypothesis, we can transform the line of sight velocity into the creeping along the fault, which gave us 3.3 millimeter of creeping along the southern segment of the Karabakh fault. Okay, so now we have all this data. So what I did, I jointly inverted them using the SDM software to obtain a slip distribution along a fault model that's based on the literature. And then I convert this slip distribution into coupling using a reference slip rate. So here what I show, it's our preferred model for here. So it's the décollement level, so the MHT, the frontal ramp. And here it's the eastern flat that you can see actually here with another map. So here what I use as a reference is 14 millimeter per year, which corresponds at the mean slip rate along the main Himalayan thrust at depth where there is no friction. So what we can notice is this large asperities along the décollement level and those smaller, more sparse asperities on the eastern flat of the plateau. And what is nice here is this patch of negative coupling on the superficial part of the frontal ramp, which means that in this area, we have a faster slip rate than the reference one, than the slip rate along the MHT at depth. Okay, so now it's the result for the two segments of the Karabakh fault. So the northern segment that's localized here, the southern segment that's localized here. And here I change the reference and I use the maximum mean geological rate that has been measured at the Karabakh fault. And here what we can see is that on both segments, we have this series of decoupled and coupled area alternating. Okay. Well, now what we know is that we have beneath the plateau along the MHT a presence of a large asperities. And this asperities means that we can actually accumulate seismic energy. This seismic energy can be then released through earthquake. And this is really important for the seismic hazard of this region. And these asperities has likely been created by salt migration. So the salt has migrated out of this area toward others area, which means that this area corresponds to area with less salt or no salt anymore. And this can also be seen by the unequal repartition of the salt layer thickness that you can see on the right, with areas with less, with thin salt layer and area with a thicker salt layer, as it is shown here. But now, looking at the superficial part of the frontal ramp, so what we have seen is that we have a fast slip rate along the frontal truss based on our obtained coupling model. And this fast slip cannot be explained just by the regional compression. There needs to be another mechanisms that created some sort of internal salt flow in the salt layer, as you can see here in this geological cross-section, so it's the same. And this internal flow is represented by these blue arrows. So close to the surface, we have something created an internal flow in the salt layer that is probably due to the specific rheology of the salt. And this hypothesis can therefore explain the uplift that we have seen in the valleys in the frontal part of the salt range. It also explains the fast deformation of the salt bottom that you can see in old mines. So this is a picture of the deformed salt bottom that has been observed during 10 years, so it's quite fast. And this, by dragging the upper rocks, can also explain the strong horizontal genesis velocity that we have seen for the salt range. Now, so for the Karabakh fault, what we have observed, this creep phenomenon on the southern part of the Karabakh fault is not unique. Other people have observed episodic creeping and or slow slip even along different parts of the fault, so on the different segments of the fault. So yeah, I just put again this model for the coupling for the northern segment. And here it's a geological section that is crossing the northern part of the Calabac Fault just here, as you can see. So here it's the Calabac Fault. And what we can see is actually along the Calabac Fault, the salt layer is also reaching close to the surface, which may explain the presence of some completely decoupled area close to the surface. But there is not only the coupled area, you also have coupled area, which means that, again, we can accumulate seismic energy along that fault. And there is no evidence of historical or instrumental earthquake for this fault. But there are evidences of paleo earthquakes that have been found along that fault. So now just the important points that I have shown here. We can accumulate seismic energy possible due to the presence of these large asperities around the MHD beneath the Potwar Plateau, which is quite important for the seismic hazard in this region, knowing the main city, so Islamabad, the main city of Pakistan, Islamabad, is not so far from these asperities. And by taking the seismic slip deficit, we can make estimation of magnitude for potential future earthquake. So with this, we can make estimates for the asperities along the main Himalayan thrust. And we found that earthquake can reach magnitude larger than 8.4 if everything is ruptured during one earthquake. But also for the Calabac Fault, we can find earthquake with magnitude larger than 7.6 in magnitude, which is quite strong. We have also seen that the Calabac Fault is quite complex and can be actually characterized by creep and or slip event and or earthquakes. And the last thing is for the salt range, so for the superficial part of the salt range, where we definitely need another mechanism than just the regional compression to explain this faster velocity. And we think that this is an internal flow in the salt layer due to the rheology of the salt layer, which created some sort of horizontal diaparisms with the salt escaping from this system. And knowing this, we can ask ourselves if actually the salt range is really like the front of the Himalaya, because this strong deformation is not only due to the compression. So we can ask ourselves if the front is really the salt range or it's more north of it. And I just take this time to make a bit of advertisement for my poster. So if you want to know more about the tectonics of this complex northwestern region of the Himalaya, I have a poster in the next session at O3 about the post-seismic deformation following the Kashmir 2005 earthquake in Pakistan that you can still see today, which means like more than 20 years after the earthquake. So thank you for your attention.